I was just saying it's my first PechaKucha, and instead of leaving it very open and expansive, which is probably the best way of doing it, I've crammed lots of words per slide, so it's going to be a bit of a speed talk. So I've come from Wysling Arts Centre, which is in Cambridgeshire, and I'm the curator there. So I'm going to talk a bit about an exhibition that I've just curated around architecture and memory. Yep. Okay, so Wysling is based in a large rural site in Cambridgeshire, and we run a range of programmes including residencies, artist studios, events and exhibitions, an annual music festival, and programmes for children and teenagers. And we often work with artists, academics, and local enthusiasts to explore particular topics, such as the cosmos or... run out of time. I'm going to talk about an exhibition that I've just curated there called Recollect, that looks at architecture, memory, and experience. I like the idea of bringing a kind of experience of that exhibition to you here in Norwich, to give a brief background and some images that describe something of the exhibition. So the exhibition explores the notion that a building can act as a kind of expanded personal archive and a depository for memories. And I hope that my slides will bring a different dynamic to the evening, so that we might think a bit about how we experience buildings in a kind of sensorial way. And think about the connection between place, architecture, and memory. Memory and architecture have been linked for a very long time in lots of different ways. The architectural mnemonic was a technique used by the Greeks and Romans, whereby places were memorized as the framework that could contain images, or in a way that helped people to recall and memorize things. And one of the most famous writers to describe the experience of memory is Proust. And I was going to quote from Proust's In Search of Lost Time, as there's this really beautiful description of how memory works with the senses, but because it's Proust, it's too long to quote for PechaKucha. Georges Perec writes in an interesting and poetic way about space, and he said, "Spaces have multiplied, been broken up and diversified. There are spaces today of every kind and every size, for every use and every function. To live is to pass from one space to another while doing your very best not to bump yourself." So onto the exhibition. Jackie Chetta currently works with text, photography and performance to uncover ways that we imagine and remember spaces. For Recollect, she presented new works exploring the physical space of a house as a metaphor for the emotionally claustrophobic relationships in the book Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton. A stereoscope gives trompe-l'oeil images of the porch of the front of the Frome house, a mundane space that becomes pivotal as the narrative unrolls. And Jackie uses this pre-digital 3D mechanism to visualize her memory of a text from 1911. Rosie Pedlow and Joe King, who make photography and film, exhibited the work Bivouac, which is a large sculpture here, and carousels of 80 photographic slides. The slides show found structures made from branches and organic materials that sprang up around a forest where Rosie and Joe happened to be filming over the course of a year. By encountering the structures only as traces, they began to associate them with mysterious, potentially mischievous activity of anonymous characters. So these spaces represent the construction of informal architectures built as and used for play, which is the antithesis to some of the other buildings discussed by other works in the exhibition. The group Better Futures Forever, who are based in Norwich, responded to the exhibition by curating their own show in Wysling's gallery before Recollect was installed. Their display is made available to people via a link from Wysling's website only, as a series of images documenting their own hang. Through editing these images, certain elements of the Wysling Gallery have been amended or improved, raising questions about how memories of real spaces are fixed and manipulated. By co-opting a public space for private use and allowing access to their works only through mediated images, they were playing with the tensions between public and private. Una Knox's video, 4.5 foot and to the left behind me, follows a man on a physical journey around the corridors of a museum's storage facility as he describes his work there managing the images of the collection and his experience of a medical condition where déjà vu precedes epileptic seizures. As he moves through it, the building becomes a metaphor for the man's mind, with its empty corridors, storage boxes full of unseen objects, and a large clock face seen from within. The narrator describes unusual experiences or bizarre sensations, raising questions about reality and perception. Phil Coy, who makes films and performances, for Recollect showed the film Facade, which looks at the construction and deconstruction of built space and language. He shows the mechanisms of television and architecture to demonstrate how even simple experiences are layered with visual and technical tricks. Phil uses archival footage, digital models, and never-built buildings, and the language of architectural walkthrough to explore some of the contradictions and power associations of modern and contemporary architecture. This image didn't come out, sorry. This sculpture by Karen Kilberg and Reuben Henry is in part based on the Central Library, Birmingham, which is a condemned brutalist building from 1972. So here Karen and Reuben play with the architectural model as a sculpture, as a finished and flawed building rather than a proposition for something new. Their film, Analytical Chronology of Three Dimensions, is an experiment in developing a visual grammar based on the temporal spatial properties of a lingual grammar. Through it, they attempt to look at the construction of time in architecture and language. For Recollect, the artist Sean Edwards showed 2 prints made as part of a residency at the Malfa Shopping Centre on the outskirts of Cardiff, where he grew up. This body of work, which includes a film and sculptures, sits between personal recollection, nostalgia, and documentation. The care taken over documenting this seemingly failed public space speaks of the importance of personal memories and insights in places controlled by public planning. And focusing on small moments in the fabric of this large architectural setting, Sean makes intimate yet abstract images that could describe many familiar spaces.